Welcome back to Legends of Adtech, the podcast that goes beyond the buzzwords to challenge how the industry really works. It's in partnership with the Season 3 partner and sponsor Revving, who help digital businesses unlock faster access to the revenue they've already earned. You can learn more at revving.io. I'm your host, Julia Linehan. I'm the founder and CEO of The Digital Voice, and today we're talking about exactly what Revving are here for, something that doesn't get nearly given enough airtime, but underpins everything in our industry. It is, of course, cash. Adtech might be built on data and automation and real-time decisioning, but when it comes to money, we're still operating to the 60, 90, and sometimes 120-day payment delays. Businesses are growing on paper, but waiting months for those earnings. So the question is, just how does the system work? And is there another way? To unpack that, I'm joined by CEO and co-founder of Revving, Chris Pettit. Now, Chris is a fintech entrepreneur, 20 years of experience across finance, law, technology, and media, and he co-founded Revving to tackle unpredictable payment cycles and give businesses greater control. Let's get right into it. Welcome to Legends of Adtech, Chris Pettit.
Thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's an introduction, Julia. I could just leave now.
No. Well, actually, I'm going to make it hard for you because I'm going to ask you in 60 seconds or less to say who you are and where you got to today.
Sure. So I'm Chris Pettit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Revving. I've spent over 20 years, sadly, working across finance, media, ad tech, and started my career as a lawyer and structured financier. Spent the last 20 years trying to beat the lawyer out of me. And then after that, I went into finance, and particularly media and entertainment, where I have invested large swathes of money for lots of different companies, financiers and people in the media and entertainment sector, particularly film, TV, video games. Video games was my segue into what I'm doing now. We were helping video games companies, mobile games companies get access to capital. We saw an opportunity to provide funding off the back of the data that exists in that particular vertical, and we've expanded that out in Revving to help businesses across ad tech, affiliate, creator, music, video games get paid on time and access flexible capital.
Love that. I know it's once a lawyer, always a lawyer, but we'll unpack that later, Chris. And now this topic today, and we always start with I'm going to be polite, a WTF. Look at me being all not potty mouth for once. WTF is paid on paper. What is it?
I think anyone listening to this podcast is going to be all too familiar with extended payment terms. Basically, paid on paper is you're waiting months off the back of an invoice, an IO, some transactions that are in a reporting platform. You can see it's there. You can see it's coming, but it hasn't hit your bank account. And that's obviously what everyone's most interested in and what's most important to manage the cash flows in any business.
Is the problem worse right now? Has it got worse, or has it always existed and we're just more aware of it?
So I think there's two things there. One is, I think the industry has become increasingly complex over time. So, if you look at its very infancy, where there are only a few parties working together, you can manage that because you've got a single relationship between two parties and you've got a single payment term or an invoice that's being paid. As we know, our industry has many, many layers, and you only have to look at diagrams of the industry to see how many players there are in it. And as you have more layers, the money's got to flow through, and therefore there are payment delays at every stage of the process. So it's definitely got worse. I think when you layer on top of that, big companies at the very top of the supply chain that start everything moving are much more attuned to holding on to that cash for longer now. We're in interesting times. We have been for many years, COVID, etc. So what's happened is those payment terms at the top of the supply chain, the brands, the advertisers, big agencies, the holdcos, they've just extended their payment terms over time. And what's happened is if you're starting at the top of the supply chain very slowly, then it's you're basically seeing a delay getting worse and worse.
What does delayed payments do to businesses? What's the impact? And given you were describing that diagram, it is those who are the final people at the end of the chain receiving it. But who's impacted worse? Is it the freelancers, the publishers, the agencies? Who's impacted, and what's the impact?
Yeah, so I think you've obviously like highlighted publishers clearly at the bottom of the supply chain. I mean, the reality is it doesn't matter where you are in the supply chain. We see businesses every single day, ranging from publishers, SSPs, DSPs, general technology suppliers, agencies, media buyers. It's the same problem. The reality is if the cash isn't in the bank, you've got no ability to spend it. Pretty obvious statement. But that if you're a scaling company, a growing business, you can't grow and scale if you don't have access to that capital. So what's happening is you're being treated like the bank. So if you've got on the one side you've got a brand, an advertiser that's paying you on 120 days, or one of the holdcos paying you 120 days, but you've got a bunch of suppliers, Google included, on the other side that wants payment on 30 days. There's a big mismatch there. So your 90-day mismatch, who's covering that? Well, what happens is the businesses caught in the middle are ending up paying for that. So what's really important to know here is if you're a CFO or an FD, you're having to hold on to large amounts of cash in bank waiting to get paid just in case there are delays. And so that's stifling growth, which I think is the main factor. Stifling growth, and it's also changing the way that you're making decisions about running your business. You're running it from a position of weakness and conservatism, as opposed to like, I want to go out there, I want to scale, want to grow, want to invest in all the projects that my commercial teams are asking me to do.
I mean, even worse than that, let's be honest, cash flow will kill you. And we have seen countless businesses really collapse. And we could link that directly to cash flow. At what point did 120-day payment terms become standard? And should they be? And what's the alternative?
It's insane to think that people have 120 days to get paid.
Isn't it?
Most companies in any other sector will start to complain anything above 30-day payment terms. And now what we're seeing is over time that has just become the norm of stretching it out. And I think we talk about this a lot at Revving, is you're challenging a bunch of working assumptions in an industry that spends so much time and energy trying to speed everything up, improve technology, get ads served more quickly, monitor, measure. Everything's driving really quickly, but the financial infrastructure that sits behind the industry is creaking in the background. And I hear every day how those big businesses at the top of the supply chain are unable to change any of those practices to enable them to deliver on quicker payment terms. So they've built infrastructure, processes that are geared towards those numbers, 120, 180 days, and they're not looking, readily and optimally to speed those internal processes up that enable money to flow downstream. And so it's a systemic problem, but it's also a structural problem that's not been addressed in the same way that other parts of the industry have been focused on.
Interestingly enough, I had the pleasure of seeing Revving was doing a workshop at Lucy Barber's Unseen Festival last September, and it was actually a room. The particular workshop, there was a lot of freelancers there and solopreneurs and small companies, and the room was packed, standing room only, and everybody, it resonated with them, but in a worrying way. That they're probably the ones most impacted and most at risk. And when we look at who holds we talked about the structural power. It is at the top that change has to happen, because the power is held by the biggest players. I don't know what the solution is, because you're saying in a way it's systemic, and they're the ones holding they can own it. Is there anything we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're holding the purse strings. It's interesting because we were talking to that particular freelance group, but then where we're seeing this at scale is actually in the creator influencer economy. So we're doing a lot of work in that part of the industry at the moment. And you imagine the sheer volume of ad dollars that are now flowing to creators. Most big are completely shifting their ad spend and allocating a huge proportion of that to the creator and influencer economy. They are, in the main, sole traders, individuals who work month to month, and it's essential that those people get paid quickly, because they rely on it for not only to create the content that they're doing that benefits those brands, etc., but also just to live. And what we're doing now is we're working with big creator platforms. And what I'm really encouraged by, and this is like shifting away from a lot of the negatives towards more maybe on the positive side of things, what I'm really encouraged is by in that particular vertical, we're seeing the brands, the big agencies really standing up and realizing that if we don't pay these creators on time, they will vote with their feet, and they will also post some interesting things about companies because they're not happy they're not getting paid.
Because they might not hold the power of the money, but they hold the power of the audience.
Exactly. And so what's happening now is some of those brands are starting to use some of their marketing budgets to pay Revving to actually accelerate payments downstream to creators. So they're realizing that the creators shouldn't be paying for this because it's not their fault they're waiting months to get paid. They themselves are prepared to step up and actually say, okay, we're going to try and make things a bit better. We can't change that internal processes, that creaking infrastructure that I just described. But what we can do is we can work with Revving because we've built a platform specifically for this purpose to get the money down to the creators, the sole traders, the people we're talking about. And I really hope that we can use that as a case study across the rest of the verticals we're working in, ad tech, affiliate, etc. Because if we can get the brands to even use a model like Revving, then it means at least the money's flowing through the system and the people that really need it are getting it in their bank.
I'm going to go positive as well, Chris. I'm going to follow in your footsteps. But, what are the smartest CFOs doing in 2026? And maybe we think about some advice and guidance that you'd put out to the CFOs in 2026.
The smartest CFOs in 2026 are actually focusing on liquidity, not on their margins. And they're also looking at the ways that they can plan around those cash timings. And by that, what I mean is they know they've got to wait to get paid. They know they've got a bunch of suppliers on the other side that need to get paid quickly. Instead of just using themselves as the piggy bank, they're looking for innovative ways that they can unlock the cash they've already got in the bank and use that to scale and grow their business, particularly at a time where I think in the UK, and we'll talk a bit about the US in a bit, but in the UK, I think there is a general malaise across most industries at the moment. And I think that's affecting decision making, particularly with the men and women that are holding the purse strings in those organizations. So if we can encourage them to say, right, yes, you've been sitting on a big cash reserve, but look at all these amazing projects that you want to get out the door. This is a good time to be doing that. Use that money, but use it wisely, knowing that all of that money that's locked up in those extended payment terms can flow more freely to you. So I think it's about using clever financial structuring. It's about focusing on the making, like, where can our business be most profitable? Let's double down on that. And then I think the third thing is, treat cash flow as like a strategic lever for your business and use that as a means to grow in those areas that your commercial teams will be encouraging you to do.
And it's interesting you mentioned growth there, actually. And so I'm curious to know, what would growth look like if capital moved at the same pace as revenue?
We know that there's going to be between 900 billion and 1.2 trillion of flows, 10 to 12% growth in the industry. There is a huge proportion of that locked up in extended payment terms and delayed payments. And so if you were to get the money moving, we're seeing a really interesting flywheel effect in all of the verticals we're working in. So, for example, it builds trust, right? If you're getting cash moving downstream, people, whether that be creators, publishers, affiliates, want to reinvest in those companies where they can see that money moving. So if you're seen to be a good corporate citizen, or you're getting money moving because of by using the Revving product, you're reinvesting, and that reinvestment is seeing growth for those brands in those programs with those partners. And that flywheel effect is something I talk about a lot, because if you've got cash in hand, you feel much more encouraged and much more positive about how you can engage with your partners and your customers, and you're much more likely to grow, not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of all those people you're waiting to get paid by.
You mentioned the US. Now, I'm always curious, US, UK, the speed at which US work, I suppose, makes decisions can be quicker has that been your experience?
Yeah, so we launched in the US in Q4 last year. So we're 6 months in, still early days from a Revving perspective. But what I've been in, I guess the comparison, if we're comparing the UK and the US, the reality is that I'm dealing with a whole range of different companies of all different shapes and sizes, and the one kernel that I can share is when they're making decisions, what they're thinking is, I want to access cash as quickly as possible because I know that I believe that I can take that money, I can invest it in the things I'm doing, and I can make a really healthy return on investment. So why wouldn't I want to access that money today so I can invest it and I can grow immediately? And I think what's interesting, I was talking earlier about, how CFOs are looking at this. And I think in the UK, they look at it like, I want to hold on to cash, or my cash reserves. I want to make sure that I'm weathering the storm, whatever that storm is, and, micro or macro. Whereas the US CFOs that I'm talking to are like, this has got a huge amount of opportunity. If I can access this capital, I know I can invest it tomorrow.
So it's confidence in growth. Well, this is interesting because you've actually had that experience of building a company and a fintech company in this space. And you did it on the basis of, here's a problem. I'm going to go out and secure major funding and I'm going to solve that problem. But what's the reality?
Okay. So when we set the company up, I think we said it would take us 12 months to build the tech that was fit for purpose. And we would break even within a couple of years, right? And it took us 2 years to build the technology platform. And we're well on the path to being break even this year. So from our perspective, the reality is what we are doing, and it's probably no surprise sat here today looking at it, but the naive Chris of 4 years ago probably thought it would be slightly simpler. Being able to solve a systemic and a problem across a complex supply chain like AdTech is not without its technical difficulties. And so David, my co-founder, who you obviously know well, and the tech team have spent a huge amount of time, obviously over the course of that period, creating our technology platform, RevHub, to enable us to do this. And I think what I knew back then was there was a problem. We knew how to solve it. We knew there was a demand for that. I think the technology that was needed to do it is a lot more sophisticated than I probably would have given it credit for. I'm very glad I didn't know what I knew then, most founders say, because like all of these things, you may not have undertaken the journey in the first place. But what's really exciting is now we've got over that hump and we have an amazing platform that enables us to do these things. What excites me is the fact that we've built something that works wherever transactions are happening. Within the digital economy, our platform can now ingest those and fund against them. And that transactional based funding model that we've built is completely unique. It's something that is transforming the companies that we work with. And I think over the course of the next couple of years will completely transform the way people access capital in this industry.
So we'll excuse David and his team for taking a little bit longer because he's built something for the long term. If I can ask you as well then, thinking about that, maybe think about what the good, the bad, the ugly of a founder journey has been so far.
Okay, so the good is definitely, I think you don't go on these journeys unless you've got brilliant people around you. And I'm a people person first and foremost. I think I love the industries that we're working in, actually. That's what I found the most exciting. So obviously, my team aside, who are fantastic, and I love them and my partners, including you guys. That's been amazing. But I think what I found really, really encouraging is super smart people working in an industry that they want change. They're looking for that change to happen quickly. And so as a founder, the good is you're out there, in my case, mission-led, doing something that really changes the companies we work in. The bad is
the hours. I know what you do and I know what I do.
Yeah, exactly. It's always, it's the same thing, isn't it? You've got to, you haven't been able to go to some of the things you wanted to go to. You're probably not as engaged with friends and family sometimes as they would like and you would hope to be. So I think the challenge always is when you're building something and you believe in it, it takes a huge amount of effort, personal, emotional capital. And I think that's never to be underestimated. The ugly, I mean, look, there are always setbacks in any business. You go through cycles of thinking, this is terrible. Can I get through this? But you can. And and that's what's amazing about, I think, human resilience is if you just keep moving forward and you break things down into bite-sized pieces, when you're building something like we've built, if you just look at it on a day-to-day basis, you can actually achieve a huge amount, and that compounding effect is so critical. I mean, unfortunate we've not really had really ugly moments as a business, but they will come and we'll weather that storm. I think that's part of it. Resilience is obviously the most important thing about
I would say so as well. I totally agree. And actually, and you mentioned something so that you said about your team, and I happen to have the pleasure of knowing your team, and they're great. But as a founder, there's tough times in the job market out there, and there's roles that are disappearing and roles that are coming forward. What roles would you say you're doubling down on right now, and which roles are becoming less critical, just in a broad sense?
I mean, because of our expansion generally, I think sales is really critical, particularly for us at this moment in time. Origination, you know, customer acquisition, super critical. So from my perspective, we're investing in that all the time, particularly looking towards the US market as we're scaling there. So that's really important, and we're very focused on that. I would also say that as we are growing, we have we've got a great BizOps team. The BizOps team in our organization is basically responsible for, once a customer's onboarded, everything that happens in their relationship with us. And that's from funding, that's making sure they're getting what they need on a week-to-week basis. And so we're investing in that, both in terms of the tools that they use, and investment isn't obviously just about people, it's also about the tools. And we're not going to get onto the AI chat here, but the reality is that we're using a bunch of really great tools that are enabling those people to do their jobs better. But it also means that we can look at bringing in more junior people. It's funny, I'm always hearing at the moment, oh, we're not going to hire grads, we're not going to hire young people, they don't have the skills, we can use AI for that. And that has resonated so much over the last year. I think it's nonsense, right? The reality is, with the tools we've got, those people with the right training can become much more beneficial to a business and at a lower price point than some middle management that doesn't have that same skill and growth mindset. So for me, I'm a big believer at the moment in, we're investing in sales, we're helping our BizOps team grow, but also let's make sure that we bring in the best young people.
I mean, you and I both have kids that are at uni, and I think and I was talking, my daughter came out with us to an industry event, an industry dinner event as well, and we were talking about it. And I'm a big believer. We have grads at the Digital Voice who've been with us now 5 years, and they're amazing. We have people through the DigiLearning, and I 100% back that decision, because you can, as long as they've got certain skills, and those actually tend to be the softer skills, the rest of it we can teach. Question for you though, because that founder to founder, Chris, it's very hard to let go. So where do you prevent yourself burning out? What does a typical week look like? And are you able to enable your team? I've got the right people, they'll go and do it. I focus in on what? And how does that work in your week?
So I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that the most important thing when you are owner, founder, CEO of any business is delegation. And delegation only happens by way of trust, and that only happens by way of good training, good education, and bringing them into business. So I look at it like it's as a sort of you're building the foundations in the building, and it takes time to do that, and you invest in it. So for me, I think what I've found over the course of the last year in particular is my willingness to delegate and trust the people around me has increased exponentially. And that has enabled me to lift out from the weeds, which is what you do when you tend to found a business. You're very focused on doing everything as a team. Stick your head up above the parapet and look out what's out there. What was out there was the US. So we immediately saw an opportunity there. It sounds obvious, but actually then the work that's needed to go into that market, I've enabled that to happen. That has shown huge amounts of returns for us. So I think that's the first thing. Second thing is, like, you've got to be kind to yourself and look at what I'm doing every day. If I've got a bit of time for myself and I've over the course of the last year, started doing saunas and cold plunges as a means of like doing something that takes me out my comfort zone that's actually
Yeah.
really great for my brain, and also means that and again, this gets talked about a lot, better version of me means that I'm thinking more clearly, not just for the team, but also I'm a better person at home.
And you can't take your phone in the ice cold tub, so
I can't.
you can't. It's a bit. I do things when I'm as you know, we play golf, don't we? And the reason is you have to leave your phone behind. So I think it's good. Given all that, and given the pressures it takes on founders, and it does take a toll. If you started again tomorrow, would you do it again?
Absolutely, 100%. I love it. I love what we're doing. I love the challenge of it. I love the ups as much as the downs in many ways, and I think you have to have that mindset. Like, it's not. I hear a lot at the moment about, we need more entrepreneurs. I found out the other day the average age of an entrepreneur in the UK at the moment is 43. Have a guess what it was 10 years ago?
50 older?
30.
It was. People are waiting longer.
Yeah, people are
I
waiting.
don't. I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I didn't get. When did I set up? 14 years ago. I'm trying to think. I might do my math. 38. You've got to do your time on the ground to see what works and what doesn't, and I think that's really important.
If you believe that you can do something, that you can change, and you can deliver a really good product or a really good service, and you love working with people, being an entrepreneur is an amazing opportunity.
So given that, so we always do a 3 hot takes. So you've stemmed my brainwaves to go, actually, can you give 3 hot takes on the best advice for launching or scaling a business in today's market? 3.
Find an amazing co-founder. That's I've found that in the dark days when things were challenging and you needed to really delve on that resilience, having someone that you want to be in the trenches with, that you can, support one another, I found that really, really helpful for me. So I think having a strong co-founder. Then the second thing is, don't give up your day job until you found product market fit and you've done a load of research and proposition, because I think a lot of people were inclined a while ago to do that. So that's a big one. Really spend a lot of time. There's so many tools available to help you do that, and lean on your peer group and people that have been there. And I think the third thing is, find your people and your community of founders and really lean into that, because they're not only going to be potentially your mentors, they're going to be potentially your first customers. So I think really use that network, which is possibly why people are getting into being an entrepreneur slightly later, because they built a bigger network. But I think use that network really effectively. That's what's really helped me over the last 20 years, is all the people I've come into contact with, they've really helped me. So I think, and then with a sprinkling of a lot of resilience over the top of it.
Yeah, just a sprinkle of that. Perfect. Good work on that. Well, let's see how you do now in the final section. You've got to answer in one sentence the quick fire questions. Chris Pettit, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. What do you miss most about working in law?
Nothing.
I love that. I wouldn't either. What's the longest payment terms you've ever come across?
I saw an RFP for payment terms that they were requiring 365 days.
I've also heard that. I think it's actually out there. People are doing that kind of shit, and it's so wrong. So many layers. Aside from late payments, what's your second biggest bugbear in the industry?
Accountability.
Oh, mine's ghosting.
Oh, ghosting.
It pisses me right off. Just answer the email, yes, no, or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I see that quite a lot in the US.
Yeah, I think it's global, actually, global pandemic of ghosting. You're really active at events. You talked about networking. What's the 3 must-attend AdTech events every year?
Really love the AdTech Economic Forum events, because I think it's got a really good group of senior people going, and it's got our core audience. I don't think any year would be there without Cannes. I mean, it's crazy and has so many benefits, and I would think that was probably top of the list. And actually, I'm going to Possible in a couple of weeks' time as well, and I'm really excited about that, because there are 6,000 people going across the whole industry, and I'll report back, but I'm looking forward to what that can bring because I think it could be a really good one for us.
Amazing. Sticking with events then, what's your ideal event format? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, or drinks?
I'm not being an early starter, unlike you. Uh, I'm probably someone that does later. I'd probably say dinner. I prefer dinners and drinks actually, because in the evening, that works best for me. And I feel like people are pretty relaxed by the end of the day. They're still just geeing up at breakfast time.
Apart from me, broken at the end of the day and buzzing at the start. I think you've already answered this with the sauna and the ice bath, but anything else? How do you like to spend your time outside of being a founder?
I just like being outside. I mean, yeah, I think like walks, like the countryside and some fresh air. I think it can't be beat. And yeah, I do love a sauna and a cold plunge now as well.
And if you had more hours in the day, how would you spend them?
With my family and friends, definitely. Yeah, that's the bit I miss the most about being an entrepreneur. I think just trying to get that balance between the two. Yeah, I'd love to spend a bit more time. I think that people talk about, what are you doing this all for? And I think it's I love what I do, but I'd love to be in a position one day where what I've done enables me to have more time for the people that I care most about.
Life work balance in that order. It's the goal we all dream of. Final question. If you had one wish to fix paid on paper, what would it be?
Just acknowledge it's a proper problem and stop pretending it isn't, and work with whoever, doesn't have to be Revving, to just sort it out. Stop extending your payment terms and making it someone else's problem, and actually just think about the impact it's having downstream.
100%. Chris Pettit, thank you very much. Been an amazing guest. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Julia, thank you as always. It was fantastic and I really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. And if there's one thing that this conversation makes clear, it's that growth, it's not just about revenue. Businesses need access to cash, and we as an industry, we pride ourselves on speed and innovation. So let's just put the same principles we do on the money. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you experience the reality of being paid on paper, do let us know. And also thank you to Revving for being our sponsor and partner this season. To speak to Chris and the team about flexible access to revenue, how to have greater control over your capital, head over to revving.io. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, rate and share with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've got a strong opinion on where the industry is headed, we want to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Julia Linehan. Keep it juicy.